Hey, sisters, welcome back to another episode of Kitchen Table Talks. It is your co host, Olivia Cream, also joined by Dr. Jacqueline Jarl. And today we want to talk about burnout. As you guys have noticed, this month we've spent a lot of time talking about the different stages of burnout. And so we thought it was going to be really important to share kind of live what this looks like for so many of us, including how it starts in our childhood. And then we take those bad behaviors into the workplace. And next thing you know, you're bedridden with some mysterious autoimmune disease because you stressed yourself out to the point of crash out, and what to do to recover from that. So to get us started here, I first wanted to ground us in what the 12 stages of burnout actually look like. And ladies, like, let me just tell you, I didn't even, as an HR executive, yes, I know burnout is a thing. We talk about it. I did not even realize that there were 12 actual stages of burnout and how we progress through those changes. So I want to start us off by just talking about those stages first before we share a little bit about how that showed up for Dr. Jarl and I here. So the first stage, stage one, is excessive ambition. I can tell you as a Black woman and also an immigrant, yes, I was born with excessive ambition, right? Like your mission in life is to achieve because failing is not an option, right? And then from there it progresses to working harder. So now you're in your grind. Sometimes we talk about it as grit or resiliency. Ladies, that is stage two of burnout, working hard. Okay. Then by the time you get to stage three, now you're neglecting your needs. So this looks like your sleep patterns are bad, you're skipping meals, maybe you're not working out when you need to. For me, I need time in nature. I haven't spent any time in nature. You're forgetting to spend time with family and friends. From there, it goes on. So that's stage three. From there, it goes on to revision of values. So now you're starting to stray away from what's most important to you. Then it's denial of new problems, right? Now that your values have escaped you, you may be butting heads with others. You may be butting heads with your spouse. You don't know why. You're blaming other people. It's the kids, it's your spouse, it's this, it's inanimate objects that's making you mad, without you really taking a break to say, is it me here? Then comes stage seven, withdrawal. This is when it starts to get serious, ladies. So during this stage, you're pulling back from relationships. Maybe it's your spouse, maybe it's your friends. You can't remember the last time you had a conversation that wasn't about work. Your social life gets small. And if you're an introvert like me, oh man, this one can slip in there and you don't even notice because you kind of are averse to hanging out with people in large groups anyways, right? Then stage eight is now your burnout is having an impact on others. You come home, you kick the proverbial dog, right? Maybe you're snapping at your children. Maybe you're mean to your friends for no reason. By stage nine, it's depersonalization. So now you wake up and you don't even feel like yourself. You're asking yourself, who am I? Like you just don't feel like yourself anymore. Stage 10, inner emptiness. Now you don't see yourself as value. You start to feel worthless all the time. Remember, we did a series on worthiness. That's stage 10 burnout right there. By the time you hit stage 11, and ladies, like from stage 10 to stage 12 is what Christy Rutherford, who's going to be with us on the 28th, says is a banana peel. So you'll go from stage 10 right to stage 12 in like a blink of an eye. Stage 11 is depression, and stage 12 is full blown crash out, right? Now you're full blown burnt out. You might be having strange illnesses that the doctors can't tell you what's going on. Maybe it's stomach issues, maybe it's fibroids, maybe it's headaches, maybe it's thyroid issues. It could be any number of these things. Even as severe as miscarriages, things like that start to happen in stage 12, and it is really hard to recover from that. So, our hope today is to help you understand what it sounds like before you get to stage 12 and crash out. So, as we go on our journey here, we wanted to start off with how, for our community, this can really be shaped by society and some of our family dynamics. So, I'm going to kick it over to Dr. JJ here to talk a little bit about how this shows up in our childhood.
Yeah, thanks, Olivia. And I'm going to use myself as an example. So, first generation, Asian immigrant. My parents are immigrants from Taiwan. Very traditional Asian family. Okay, where you have your father as the patriarch, and then sons are more important than daughters. Okay, I'll just kind of leave it at that. So, the family that I grew up with, my biological parents split when I was very little. Like I have very little memory of my biological father. So, I remember being raised really by my grandparents, right? Because my mom was a single mother of two girls and she had to go work. Like that, that was kind of what it was. So, from really from the very first memory that I've had, like I've had this like, oh, I'm different than other people, like I must do better than other people in order to get approval, right? I was the child without the father, right? That was kind of how I was in school. I was also an American citizen going to school in Taiwan when I was little, so that was something that was different from other people. um and then, you know, once my mom met my stepdad, who I call dad because he was the one that raised me, they had my brother. And I think for me, in probably this is probably true of all like Asian children, right? Like, and maybe all immigrant children. I don't know. But it was more of like I must prove myself to my parents and to the society, right? Like now that my parents have like I was born in the US, but like my parents are immigrants, so they were always like, "Oh, we must do better than other people like to prove that we belong here in the United States," right? That was always the so yeah, so I mean, you have to get straight A's, right? I know there's a lot of comedy, like TV shows and things like that right now that talk about like Asian immigrants. And they do it as a joke, but like it's actually true. Like those are the pressures that are put on immigrant children, right? Like if you get a B, that's like an F. That is true. Like if you got an A minus, your parents are like, why did you get an A minus? But if you get an A plus, that's a yeah, you should have done that, right? Like there was never any compliment for doing good things. And I played golf when I was in high school. And it was like if you won, that was like, great. This is why we spent so much money sending you to golf lessons. If you got second place, be like, why couldn't you be better? Right? That was kind of what it was. So it created this like obviously starting with stage one, right? You create this like, oh, I must do better, I must do more things to prove that I'm worthy of their love, right? That was kind of what it was like love wasn't unconditional. I was only loved if I did well, right, in those things. So that very obviously quickly went to number two. Like in high school I was on the golf team, I was on the swim team, I was the president of science club, and I did like a bunch of other things. Like I was, I don't even remember, but I did so many things. National Honor Society. I volunteered every Sunday for 4 hours at the local hospital. I mean, it was like all of these things that you're doing as a child, really. I mean, you're a teenager, but like you're a child. Your brain's not fully developed, right? Like you don't really understand all of these things, but it's like I must work harder in order to get approval from the people that I love, from my family, right? And then of course you're like, yeah, I'll do anything. Whatever you ask of me, I will do, right? So again, now we're progressing down kind of the burnout chain here. And displacement of conflict, this one actually is I have a story that I want to share. So there was one time, so I did karate as well when I was in high school. And there was once when my mom came to pick me up from karate. My sister and my brother were in the car. And I don't even know what caused this, but like my sister and I started like a verbal fight in the car. And we were like cussing at each other for whatever reason. Like I don't even know what it was anymore, but I just remember this. And then my mom actually kicked us out of the car, like in the middle of this shopping center. She's like, get out. I'm like, okay. So we ended up, going, like I was like, I'll just walk home, which was like not doable. Like it was like 10 miles, right? So I had my karate bag with me. So I just like slung it over my shoulder, and then I'm like, oh, I'm gonna walk home. So I'm like over here walking uphill, going back home. My sister ended up going to McDonald's. She probably had the better idea. But it was just like any little thing can like trigger your anger. And then now you're blaming other people for whatever it is that might have happened. Um, and then, yeah, like, so pretty much like, I think for my entire high school, life, it's just like revision of values. Like, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know what was important to me. Like what was important to my parents was what was important to me, right? I didn't have even my own values. So I was like, oh, must get straight A's, must have a lot of friends, and all of that. And Olivia, when you talked about depersonalization, inner emptiness, it's like sometimes I wonder why I don't have any friends from pre-college. Like, I literally have zero friends that I keep in contact with pre-college, which is different because my sister, like, even though we moved away from Taiwan, like, she still has a group of friends from her childhood years, like grades, kindergarten through 5. And for me, it was kindergarten through 4. Like, she keeps in touch with those people. And like, they came to her wedding, and all of that. And I was like, I don't have any friends from prior to college that I keep in touch with. Right. And I didn't know this, but now, this month I was actually reflecting as we're doing the post. I was like, oh my gosh, that's because of burnout. Like I never made any connections, like true connections, right, with people prior to college because I was always in burnout. And like having friends wasn't important to me because they weren't important to my parents. Right. So it's like, and I mean, obviously, we're not going to talk about this in depth today, but like studies have shown that in order for you to heal from burnout, from depression, from anxiety, from even addiction, right? Like it's the community, it's the connection that you need, it's the relationships that help you heal as a person. So it's like I was always operating in a stage of burnout. I didn't have any true, like solid relationships, outside of my family unit. And then I continued operating this way until I went to college. And within the first 2 weeks of me being in college, I got Graves' disease. So
What is
Graves' disease, an autoimmune disease for your thyroid,
Oh,
within 2 weeks of going to West Point. And it is like, oh, was it just the 2 weeks at West Point? Like people were like, oh, it's too stressful, blah, blah, whatever. That's why you had an autoimmune disease. Like, no, I had been under burnout for the last 18 years. And it just led up to, West Point was kind of like the trigger. But for the last 18 years, like that's how I've operated. And my body finally was like, no, like I'm hitting the eject button here. But did I? No, of course not. I stayed at West Point, right? Like, went through the 4 years, and my thyroid levels, like the whole 4 years I was in school, my thyroid levels were on and off for the entire 4 years. Like, it's not until I graduated and went in the military that my thyroid levels were normal, right? So, like, I was literally in burnout for the first 16 years. What was it?
but isn't that
18, 22
crazy?
years of
Like
my life.
in the military, your active duty military, West Point military in the field, and that's when your levels start to normalize. Isn't
Yes.
that like that in and of itself is crazy? I resonate with everything that you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's honestly crazy. So, I share that story to let people know like burnout doesn't just happen at work. It happens in your family unit as well. Like, are you always trying to one up each other, right? With like your siblings? And again, this is early childhood education, right? Has shown that the worst thing for a child is to compare them to another child. Whether that's their sibling or maybe somebody else's child, right? And in the Asian culture, that's all you did, right? Oh, look at so and so. Why can't you be more like them, right? Why are you always getting number 2 and they're always getting number 1? Why can't you be number 1 once? right? And like, oh, your sister didn't, like, even teachers did this, right? Which is obviously, this is like just cultural. Even teachers, like my sister was a year older than me, right? And she was really good at language arts, and language and arts, I should say, right? And I could not color in between the lines, even as a kindergartner. And my teachers would be like, your sister is so good at this. Why are you so bad? Like, they would say things like that, right? Which obviously to a child, it's just like, oh, I'm bad at it. So now, like, I've literally avoided anything artsy because I'm like, oh, that's where I get like put down. So I'm just not going to do that. So like now I just avoid the topic, right?
JJ,
People,
I am jumping out of my
yeah,
skin as you're saying this. I'm like, oh my God, it's so common because
yeah,
I think, as an HR professional, we joke when you think about like Gallup and things like that, and there's this strength called competition, right?
yeah,
And it's like the people with competition are like, yeah, I'm competitive, blah, blah, blah. But the basement of competition is actually not wanting to do things that you're not good at, and
yeah,
burnout is driving that.
yes,
It's driving it.
100%, 100%.
Mhm.
Yeah, yep, 100%. So yes, burnout doesn't just happen at work. Okay, it also happens outside of work, within your friend group, within your family, right? So just be on the lookout for that. And parents, like, please, 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 right? I mean, maybe it's you need to read some parenting books, or maybe you need to do some research, right, on early childhood education or teenage education, or and things like that. And I will say, my parents, when my brother, so again, this is kind of like the male, right? The male is more important in the Asian culture. When my brother went to middle school, he went to a private school, and they had a bunch of classes on like how to be a good parent, right? How to be a better parent. And they did get better, like, as they went to classes, like they started, and I was the middle child, like, I think usually the oldest daughter, right, kind of carries the burden of all of the expectations, right, like taking care of your family and all
Yes.
of that. And my sister did have a lot of that, but for me, like, I was the middle child, and in my mind, this is probably true too, but in my mind, like, my mom always loved my sister the most, and my dad always loved my brother the most. So I was kind of like the odd person out. And there's like this running joke within our family that I was adopted, right? Because like I didn't get the love that the other two got. So and it's not true, I'm not adopted. uh, but it's like, it reflects, like, even though we joke about it, but like as a child you feel that, right? And you're just like, well, what can I do to make my parents love me more, right? So that's, and I just wanted, like, parents, please, like, please don't compare your kids to their siblings or to other kids, right? And things like that, and show them unconditional love. Like, if they get a B, don't just discard them, right? If they get an A or an A plus, like, shower them with love, because it impacts how they act when they're an adult. It really does. Like, it's just these life experiences that shape us into who we are. And the most powerful experiences are the ones that we experience as children. Yeah, so please help your children not to be in a stage of burnout when they're little, that they think it's normal, so they just operate like that throughout their entire life. All right, so enough about childhood burnout and childhood trauma and depression and all of that. So now we're going to jump into, what does this look like in the workplace, right? What does burnout look like in the workplace in the different stages? So Olivia, I'll throw it over to you, and then I'll interject when I can.
Yeah. So at first, I like, if you guys are watching this video, you probably realize I look like a bobblehead doll over here because I clearly am not Asian, but everything that you said resonated. So now I'm kind of like, is this all immigrant families? Because everything that you said, it from the men, Jamaican society, for y'all that don't know, I was born in Jamaica, so my family is Jamaican, is very patriarchal, right? So it's like when I said I wanted to play soccer, they were like, girls don't play soccer. And with my personality, I was like, oh yeah, not only am I going to play soccer, I'm going to be the best at soccer, and I'm going to like kick all the boys' butt, right? Like everything was like, how do I prove myself to overcome some of these societal norms? And to your point, JJ, that follows us into the workplace. And I want to layer in a little HR advice right now. Um, for the audience, our environment has shifted and the corporations now have the leverage. Okay. When you look at the unemployment, there's more talent out there than there are jobs. And so the dynamic has shifted from a candidate market to now an employer market. And why I'm telling you that is because if you don't recognize these symptoms in yourself and adjust your behavior accordingly, what's going to happen is you could very well open the door to be exploited at work. And I'm going to give you examples of this, right? And some of it, people will be like, well, corporations need to be, but you guys, like, you need to manage yourself. And the corporations will do what they do, which is to make money. Okay. So, yes, I know there are a lot of good people out there championing change for the way organizations run. I tend to focus on what I can control. And you can control how much you put in, when you stop, when you take a break, when you set a boundary, when you say no, to preserve yourself. Because the reality is, if you work yourself into a ditch and you drop, we in HR will replace you before your seat gets warm, and in a week, no one will remember your name. I promise you. So when we talk about this burnout stuff, it's a warning sign, like big red flag. Save yourself, because no one else is going to save you. The system just isn't designed to care about you that way. It's not personal, it's just business. Okay, so how does this show up at work? As JJ said, your childhood has some foundational things. I experienced exactly the same things, different stories, same outcome. Okay. So by the time I transitioned into the military, for me, when I was at the Coast Guard Academy, I had the added displeasure of being sexually assaulted there. So, in addition to the stress of academics, and at this point, I had never received anything other than A's in my life because my parents just would not accept it. And for my parents, you would either be a doctor, lawyer, or engineer. Anything other than that is absolute failure. So, whether you wanted to be any of those things or not did not matter. Those were the three things that you needed to be. So of course I chose, one of the more difficult majors, and majored in mechanical engineering, which luckily for me, I do have an aptitude for. So it wasn't like so foreign, to me, but it was very challenging. And I remember getting my first C and thinking that like my life was going to end. Like it was so dramatic, you guys. I was like, oh my God, like they're gonna love me less, like I'll never recover from this. Like it was very dramatic, and that was tied to burnout. Then the sexual assault incident happened. And I told my parents, and this is, listen, I love my parents, so this is not like beat up on your parents situation. Everybody's just doing the best that they can. But I told them, and their response was, well, you can't come home. Like, you got to finish what you started, right? So figure that shit out. So layer on top of, the academics and being a star soccer player, all of these things. Now you have this other stuff happening in the background, and my nervous system was so awry that I had all sorts of things, migraines, joint aches, like all sorts of things that I was just like, oh, I just got to push through. Push, push, push was my motto, right? Like you just got to push, you just got to push past it. If you push far enough, like it'll be fine, it'll go away or whatever, but I promise you your body remembers. So now I'm out into the field, okay? And as a military engineer, especially if you're in command, you're running on 2 hours of sleep. Okay. People are calling you for everything. You have constant reoccurring dreams that we're sinking, the ship is on fire. I went through Katrina at sea. That like every 10 seconds, I was like, well, this is gonna be it. We're drowning today. And you live in this perpetual stage of I got to get my work done because people are relying on me. And literally, if I don't do this, if I don't fix this generator, if this engine doesn't come back up, we might very well die. Like that was a real and present thing. And even if death wasn't ever present. It was still the nervousness as something's going to go wrong. And as a Black female young engineer, everybody was already looking at me, just waiting for the inevitable failure, right? So push, push, push was the mentality, working overtime. When I got home, I wouldn't take time to go rest. No, 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 no. I was on the boat. Everything had to be prepared. I couldn't have any discrepancies on our audits. Everything, every I had to be dotted, every T had to be crossed. And it led me to really that stage of isolation or inner emptiness where I had attached my identity to my work and I didn't know who I was without the work, right? Did not know who I was without the work. Now, fast forward, I left the military and joined a medical device company that I absolutely loved. But what I found there was the ever-present push, 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 right? Maybe the environment wasn't life or death. Like you can kind of be like, well, yeah, if you don't fix the generator, everybody's gonna die. So yeah, you're burnt out, but to be expected, right? Like you need to figure that out. In this situation, no one was dying. Literally, you guys, I have to show you this. This tattoo on my arm here is my Sea Service medal. And I got this tattooed on my arm in my first civilian job at this medical device company. And it was my reminder to myself because I was burning out so badly. We're not getting shot at. Nothing's on fire. We're not going to sink. Whatever it is, take a breath. It's going to be okay. Like I physically needed a visual reminder to stop me from push, push, pushing. But guess what happened? I push, push, pushed anyways because that's what I was so used to. I didn't know how to operate without that constant state of urgency. And what was happening is I was creating that for myself. And what I realized when I transitioned out of a role at this company that I work for, that I really did love, you guys, I was backfilled by three people. What does that tell you? Right? What does that tell you? So I was bumping my head up against the VP ceiling there and didn't get the opportunity, and that was okay, right? I found an opportunity outside the organization, but when I left, my job got split in three. And when I look back at that, I think to myself, oh my God. Like I was literally doing the work of three people on a plane every week. During the summer when we would do Q12s, it was literally multiple cities a week, back to back trips. I would come home so exhausted. And like I said, I'm an introvert, right? So I joke now that I reflect back at my time in corporate, it was like, I'm here to help, but I'd rather not be. Like that's the introvert in me. But I was pushing past all of that to do my job. What happened? My family life suffered, you guys. Now that I'm retired and I'm in Jamaica, my husband will say things to me like, I didn't care about anything but work and the animals because they needed tended to. Like, there was no room for anything else. There was no room for my girlfriends. I was missing phone calls. I mean, I would go months without talking to my girls. I would go months without talking to my parents because I was so mentally and physically exhausted by the work because I didn't know what a boundary was or that I should be setting them at work. I did not make time to go for a walk. I did not make time to balance out my day. I had in my mind, as the eldest immigrant child, I needed to always be on. I needed to always be responsive. I needed to always be there when I was called upon because I could not fail. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just tell you, none of that is true. It's not true. It's not true. Please save yourselves because what I realized in the end, when I moved on from my first company, they replaced me with three positions. I didn't get a gold medal. I didn't get a cookie. I didn't get anything for all of that sacrifice that I poured into that company. And like I said, in a week, everybody was like, Olivia, who? Like it did not, in the end, it did not matter. And when I also look back and I think about my compensation, if I was replaced by three people, holy hell, was I saving them money by doing the work of three people, burning myself out? Do you think I got the salary of three people? No, ma'am, I sure did not. I sure did not. So, all of this effort, right? When you think about your work, you have to really think about it like a contract. Their return on investment was, I can't even quantify, it's quadruple what it should have been, simply because I was willing to burn myself out in order to feel validated, in order to feel loved through performance. And I saved nothing for the parts of life that actually matter. And I know I've been going for a little bit here, so I'll wrap up with this story. My last role before I transitioned into full time entrepreneurship was an absolute flippin' dumpster fire. When I tell you I was living in stage 9, 10, and 11, and on the precipice of full blown crash out, it was a real deal. Now, I could very easily say, this was the president's fault because she was a horrible human being, and she was. I could blame her, but the reality is it was me and my lack of boundaries and my chronic burnout and my comfortability with the burnout that led to me crashing at my body physically failing me the way it did. It wasn't anybody else's fault but my own. So I beg you guys, I beg you, if you are starting to withdraw, if you're starting to stray away from your values, I'm big on community. I love my girls. Obviously, JJ and I wouldn't have created this community if we didn't want to share space with other ladies. Like, this is who I am at my core, but I had let all of that go to perform for love. If you start to lose touch of your values, if you start to withdraw, if your spouse is holding up a mirror to your face and being like, you're always tired all the time, you never want to go out, if these things start to happen, resist the urge to argue and really stop and say, is it me? And am I burnt out? Okay, please do it.
Yeah. I mean, and I think I want to give a couple examples of things that were caused by burnout that I didn't know were caused by burnout, right? I thought it was something else. Okay. Because again, before this month, I didn't really have a good idea on like what is burnout and what burnout causes. I knew that, obviously, oh, burnout is just working too much. No, it's much more than working too much, right? So when I exited the military, I was a medical discharge for a shoulder injury. Um, and I had like tendinosis in, like three of the rotator cuff tendons, in my left shoulder. And obviously I have been doing physical therapy, right? And now that I'm no longer in the military, there's less overuse, right? And yes, I did baby it for quite some time, to try and heal it and things like that. When burnout starts to happen in corporate, when it started to happen for me in corporate, like the pain would come back,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like my shoulder pain would come back, my migraines would come back, my PTSD dreams would come back, right? Even though I wasn't in like the military stress situation, right, and things like that. But that's what it's like if you have, these issues that you've had before, right? Your chronic issues, like they flare up when burnout gets bad. Okay, so for me, obviously, I'm like, oh, this is an old injury. Like, let's go do more physical therapy, take some ibuprofen, you'll be fine, right? Suck it up and drive on. That's what we all say, right? But no, like it wasn't your shoulder issue, right? And it wasn't your headache issue, like it was a burnout issue. So I just want people to know, like, burnout is could, right? Everybody reacts differently, everybody's body's different, but it could have new autoimmune diseases, and new other diseases, but it could also manifest in itself in your other chronic illnesses that maybe you thought were fixed, but they come back because that's how your body is signaling to you that something is wrong and you need to change or you need to do something different. So this is so important, right? I think like always listen to our bodies because our minds, and this is, I think I saw a post yesterday on LinkedIn with something that said like top performance and burnout, the only difference is the crash, right?
Oh
So
my.
Yeah. So it's like
Yes.
everyone's like, I mean, like for me, right? Like right before I quit corporate, right before I retired, I had gotten like 2 out of 3 years, I had gotten top marks for performance, like back to back years of top marks. And then I think before my last role, it was like 3 out of 5 years of top marks, right? So it literally, it's like most top performers are like, oh, I'm just gonna go, 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 which is driving their top performance, but it's also driving their burnout, right? And the only difference is stage 12. It's the total burnout syndrome, right? Like I had migraines, daily migraines that I was like, what is happening? Like couldn't explain it. No medication was taking care of it, right? And all of these things. And that's when I, realized I was like, this is burnout, right? Like, I mean, I had migraines in the military and I, had migraines, pretty much throughout my adult career, but it's like every single day, like what is happening? And I was like, all right, like it's burnout. And I need,
No,
like, I need to, I need to stop.
JJ, you're making such an important point here that like I want to reiterate for our audience. Your body knows and it will tell you. Our minds are the problem. And for high potential women, which is our audience, right? Like we do not know how to stop. It has been ingrained in childhood. Oh, you just like ignore whatever your body is doing. You just push past it. That's normal. No, stop that. Stop it. Your body is trying to save you before you full blown crash out. And I didn't learn that early enough that your body speaks to you and you need to honor it and you need to listen to it and be like, okay, what's happening? Why do these headaches start happening? For me, it was headaches as well. But even right now, I'm still trying to recover from where I carried my stress was in my shoulder and in my shoulder blades. Like right now, I cannot turn my head fully to the right. Like it literally gets jammed up. And I was thinking, oh, I just needed some massages. I would like go and get massages. Who doesn't like a spa day, right? Like treat yourself, girl. But I was getting them so frequently thinking, oh, this is all I needed when I wasn't dealing with what was causing the
Truth.
tension in
Yeah.
my neck and back to begin with. And so, for me, it was headaches, it was the neck problems, it was body aches, it was joint aches. And JJ, I've struggled with my weight my entire adult life for the most part. And it's also your weight, ladies, because when you're burning out, your cortisol is so high, and cortisol affects your weight, it affects your brain function, it affects your sleep patterns. So those early warning signs of like, oh, I can't go down because I have racing thoughts, and we're like, my brain won't shut off. Ladies, that is an early warning sign that you are burning the F out. Okay. Like early warning system. All right. And most of us, like me, I was like, oh, I'm just not a good sleeper. Let me take some Advil PM. Or I cannot tell you how much I should have bought stock in Advil PM, the amount of Advil PM that I took to like function. So this is such an important point. That's why I'm going so deep on this is that nobody tells us you need to listen to your body. Well, I'm here to tell you you need to listen to your body before there are massive consequences. And for me, I'll just share because I'm at peace with it at this point. It completely led to a hysterectomy for me. My stress was so high, my body crashed out in the way that it took the ability for me to have, to give life because I couldn't let go of the burnout. So there's like serious ramification, ladies. And if I can save just one of you, say just one of
Yeah.
you from our fate. Listen to your body because at the end of the day, again, your job will replace you and forget you in a week. Your body is all you have. Like once it goes, girl, like it's a wrap. So please listen to your body and take care of the underlying issues, not just like treat yourself to a spa day. I mean, still do the spa day, but you know what I mean? Like,
Yes. I mean, I feel like if you, and this is like a lot, I go to the Veterans Affairs for my medical stuff and they don't care about the root cause. They just want to treat the symptoms so you stop complaining, right? Like don't
yes.
let doctors do that to you because when you go to the doctors and you tell them, I have shoulder pain, I have joint pain, I have headache, like they're going to throw pills at you to be like to alleviate the pain, right? Because that they want to help you, but very few doctors will, like, because they don't know your life. So they don't know that you've been operating in burnout, right? And if the medications work, then they're going to be like, oh, great, like just keep taking the medicine, right? But a lot of the things can actually be resolved without medication if you just let up and kind of not go into more burnout, right? Like you have to recover from that, which is the root cause, right? Not just treat the symptoms, but actually treat the root cause, which is burnout.
Yeah. And I would offer this advice too, because I think when I first started to realize that I was crashing out, and for it, like I realized it way too late. I look back and I'm like, I'm really not as smart as I think I am, because how did I not see this? Um, but I think some of the things that you have to start asking yourself is, what does success actually look like for me?
Yeah.
Right? What does it look like? It could just be not getting fired. It could be doing enough to not get fired, to do your job, to get a solid, what, 3 or 4, whatever's in the middle of like, yep, you are doing your job and you're doing it consistently and you're fine with that, right? But I think, for me, I didn't necessarily define what success looked like for me. I just knew I had to be the best. And so when I set that challenge, my brain was like, all right, bet we got to be the best. So I'm going to do whatever it takes to be known as the best. And that definition was so vague. So I gave myself, I gave my brain mission impossible, which led to burnout. So I ask you, as you're listening to this, to really reflect, what does success actually mean to you, and what are you willing to give up to achieve that success? Because I think the key to preventing burnout is probably in that question, like, what are you willing to sacrifice? Are you willing to sacrifice your relationships? Are you willing to sacrifice your health? Are you willing to sacrifice your sanity? What are you willing to sacrifice? Where is that edge for you? And then you create boundaries around that edge.
Yeah. I love it. I mean, I think that's a great note to end on. Gave you guys a little bit of homework to do, right? Kind of think about self-reflection, right? I think this is something that Olivia and I always push for is like, hey, like you have all the answers and you can, make your life better. Like it's all in your hands. You just have to be able to do the reflections, make a plan, and then execute on that plan, right? But it first starts with identifying what you want, identifying who you are, right? And then from there, making a plan that aligns with what you want and who you are, and then executing on that plan. So again, like I say, every time we film one of these, if you found this helpful for you, please subscribe. And also specifically for this episode, please, please, please share with someone, okay? Because you guys know high performers and burnout, okay? A very, very thin line, all right? So if you know someone or if you see someone who's, in maybe stage 1 through 6, please, please, right, send them this video, okay, so that they can learn about burnout, so that they identify where their burnout is coming from. We want to help as many people as possible. All right, so please share this video with someone that might need it. And with that, we'll see you next month.
See you next time.
Bye.